Welcome back, Humblebees. Welcome to a Weird Random Tuesday live event. I am so excited to be talking to you guys today. We are live, and here, the person with me that needs no introduction, Patrick from the Cave to the Cross Apologetics. Thanks for joining me, brother.
Kabla, I'm glad that we're going to talk about Star Trek. That's what we're doing. Okay, start over. We'll cut this out. Good thing this isn't live.
It's not live. You're good, and we want you to live long and prosper. Also, please don't send me videos about why that's satanic and stuff, okay? Because I don't want to hear that. I don't want you to ruin it for us.
It's from Jewish mysticism. Leonard Nimoy copied it from the Jews in the back of the synagogue that were praying over the congregation. So.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
You guys already learned something.
Trek fact.
Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome, listeners. You didn't know.
Now. That's fine.
That's I actually did not know that, but I did see a crazy video talking about how people were that the whole thing was all satanic and stuff, and I was like, man, you guys ruining like my Monster drinks, and now you're ruining Star Trek, and Kaylee's all totally into it and everything. I don't know who said welcome because I've got to pull up this link, but we are here live today on all of the different things. You can hear my dog barking in the background for no reason. She hasn't barked all day, but now that I'm live, she's gonna sit and bark. So there's our producer over there, Clementine, barking for no reason. And we're going to be talking about technology. Patrick, I'm super excited, and I'm so thankful that you joined me for this because I am a total dork, and I love technology, and I love getting to chat about these things, but a lot of times I get super excited about these things, and then there's always somebody that's out there, and their instant response is, that's the devil, and that's the mark of the beast, and so you can't have that technology. So we're going to talk about technology today and also hopefully give a little bit of assurance to people who are afraid that technology is somehow as satanic as doing this. There.
Yeah.
They don't do it like that. They do it like this, right?
Correct.
You know what? It took me years to figure that out. Poor Kaylee. She's been trying so hard. She loves Star Trek now. I'm super excited.
Put like a rubber golf ball in the middle. And just hold it there.
Just hold it there, just until it starts to really hurt, and then stop. Yeah. So we're gonna be talking about technology. I'm really, really excited. We are live on all these different things. I'm just checking all the links and making sure that they work. So why don't you start us off, brother? I want you to just quickly tell all of my listeners who you are, why I have different stuff up here. You guys can't see this until I duck down, but that particular one here, that's for Patrick.
That's right. Well, I'm Patrick, one of two co-hosts from Cave to the Cross Apologetics. Tony is my better half. He's earned his doctorate in philosophy. He and I have been meeting for about 6 years, and for the past 2 years, we decided to film what we've been doing, which is every other weekend we would kind of just read a chapter or two of an apologetics book, discuss it. We got big into presuppositional apologetics, and we kind of haven't really stopped. And to say that I'm an expert in it after 6 years would be a lie. And since we're Christians, we don't lie. Just as like saying, Princess Bride is a good movie, that would be a lie. And so, I will seek your repentance on all of this. So you can find us at caveofthecross.com, and all your hate mail can go to patrick@caveofthecross.com. We're on all the standard areas. We do a video podcast as well on YouTube. And so thanks for letting me come on. And also, I've never been on camera eating pineapple on pizza.
Wow. I mean, we didn't get very far before you had to just go ahead and ruin the whole event. So I'm sorry, Cindy, that you can't hear him well while he's talking. I'm going to work on that. I'm not really sure. At least they can hear you, but they're saying that they can't hear you maybe as well as they'd like to. So I'm going to work on that. We tried beforehand, and I thought I had it fixed. So at least they can hear you. And while you're talking, I'll keep piddling with buttons and stuff until like something gets fixed. But today we're going to be talking about all these different technologies, and we kind of came up with a couple of lists and different cool things that we wanted to share. But I have to first say that I completely agree with you, Patrick, that is a crying shame that anybody would say that The Princess Bride is not a good movie. That's
terrible.
That's bad. Yeah,
It's awful.
I'm really surprised by anybody not thinking that that's like a literary and artistic genius work. So it's kind of weird to hear that, but
You know, if Christians are okay endorsing a movie that has the Lord's name in vain said by one of the main characters, I mean, I guess that's the spot we're at in church history.
That's where we're at. It's true. Seriously, I have not watched that movie since I was like, I don't know, 10. I'm surprised that it's still a thing that people watch. It's kind of like Monty Python. You know, you remember those movies, but you're like, that was a long time ago. Nobody remembers that. Apparently people do. So I appreciate you addressing that. And also, guys, don't blaspheme. That's not cool. As Ray Comfort would say, oh, it's very serious. It's the death penalty in the Old Testament. So, yeah, it's very serious. Don't do that. Patrick, why don't you take us away talking about the first kind of technology that we're going to talk about? And, yeah, I'm going to let you just chat while I fix your audio and speak up, I guess, while you're waiting.
Yeah, okay. I guess I will. Oh, man. So when Lauren proposes to me, we were talking about kind of evil thinking technology that we think that might take over or do us harm or is terrible in the wrong hands. The stuff that they make movies about, you know, the fun ones, the ones that they stick in the sci-fi section, the ones that they make for $7,000, and I end up liking them a lot, and no one's. Not really. So what we're talking about here is kind of us creating technology that then creates its own self, its own sustainability. It might have a consciousness. It might have a soul. There's video games that have been out about this, and of course all the fun movies. Terminator being one. Everyone wants to go Skynet. Okay, we'll pick Skynet. So actually, Terminator comes up in a few of mine. Here's what an article from IO9 says. Catastrophe likely arise from an expert system of super sophisticated algorithms run amok. And the worry is not so much its power, which is definitely a significant part of the equation, but the speed at which it will inflict the damage. By the time we have a grasp on what's going on, something terrible may have happened. It could knock out our electrical grid, damage nuclear power plants, cause a global scale economic collapse, misdirect autonomous vehicles and robots, take control of the factory or military installations, or at least some kind of propagation blight that will be difficult to get rid of, whether in the digital realm or in the real world. The possibilities are frighteningly endless. Our infrastructure is becoming increasingly digital and interconnected, and by consequence, increasingly vulnerable. In a few decades, it will be as brittle as glass, with the bulk of human activity dependent upon it.
Wow.
And so I was like, yeah, okay, I could be scared, right? So we kind of think about, the machines taking over, the Matrix, Terminator, as I said, the iRobot, if you remember that terrible movie, read the book, it's a little bit better. Honestly, Asimov's iRobot talks about kind of that rise of intelligence and the 3 laws of robotics. And in fact, when people talk about the 3 laws of robotics, what they don't really realize is that from iRobot or do androids dream of electrical sheep, I think that's the subtitle, is all the stories in there are the different ways that the robot precludes itself from the 3 laws. And
right.
There are a lot of good, interesting philosophical points in there. So one of the reasons why I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So why don't we have to be scared of it? Okay, so
should I
just from
the creepy picture that you sent about this? Is it time for the
Sure.
system error?
Yeah,
Okay.
system error.
Tell us why we don't need to be scared of this then.
So this assumes that AI will infect and effect systems outside its network. So it's again, the key word is not the artificial part, it's the intelligence part. What of the intelligence is directed to do? Now, if it's, programmed to do that, then we would say that, mankind is the one that does that. If you have a virus, a computer virus, you don't blame anything on the computer, you blame it on the person that designed the virus. And so having this idea that it's going to, go out with its little tendrils into the world and blow up the economy in some way or launch the nuclear weapons, well, that's just an assumed fact. It assumes malicious intent, which would also take out its own infrastructure, right? And its ability to use power. And honestly, I think that's a construct within ourselves. I think it's one of those things where it'd be a good point to talk about made in the image. So we are made in the image of God. And so even in our fallen state, we retain certain aspects of that image. And when we create, it seems like we create in our own image as well. It's one of the reasons why if you watch sci-fi shows, other than makeup would be harder, but most of the aliens that come in contact with are bipedal. They've got 2 eyes, they've got a mouth for communication through vibration of vocal cords, all that stuff. And so when we're talking about AI, we're talking about intelligence that it doesn't seem likely that we would be able to get there. And I think there's a lot of points against assuming that consciousness or intelligence would ever arise from it. Yeah. So this also assumes that there's no counter AI, right? So humanity doesn't want to blow itself up. And people who are smart enough to do this are probably going to be not some, geeky kid in the bottom of his basement or terrorist in a cave somewhere. It's going to be a group of people that design under specific closed scenarios, like what we had with DARPA in the early intranet. It was an internal network of computers that communicated with itself. And it wasn't just released upon the world and say, deal with it. And I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, but in the development of it, it was just, let's see if this works out. And in fact, one of the early designers of the internet was a Christian himself, and we can kind of get in that towards the end there.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So most likely it's going to be companies with highly paid people who set it up in a decentralized way to write good AI. The assumption that it will corrupt itself or like a short circuit, Johnny Five gets struck with lightning and suddenly Johnny Five is alive. That's that famous quote.
All he did was get shocked by electricity or something.
Right. So where's the malevolence? It's at the beginning. And to say that the Johnny series is malevolent is to speak against its creator rather than the creation. Right. And so Johnny Five's humanity, his consciousness, his being, his soul is kind of infused upon him in a lightning strike, which, what women want gives you the ability to read women's minds, and all sorts of things happen with lightning strikes in movies.
It's kind of like whenever you end your story by saying, and then I woke up from the dream. It's just a magical way to say whatever you want. Also, I just want to say hi to the guys with Bibles, because I'm pretty sure that this over there is Lee. Lee, tell me if I'm right. That's totally you talking, isn't it, right? Because there's 3 of you guys. That sounds like Lee. Okay, keep going, brother. You're on a roll. I just wanted to point that out real quick.
Nice. Well, first of all, we barely have a clue how the brain works, let alone how mind, consciousness, or the soul kind of interacts. And in fact, if you're looking at it from a purely science perspective, and when I say science, I mean the ability for science to speak about the natural world, which is where science falls in the domain. It has the ability to speak about kind of the physicality of things in the physical world. It doesn't have the ability to speak outside the supernatural world. Right. The very fact that how many angels does it kind of dance on the head of a pin is it to talk about that. And some other supernatural aspect. People think science will be the key to breaking through this, but there's deep philosophical questions that we barely agree upon what the question is, let alone what the definition of word should be. So when I move my hand, right, I'm moving my hand, but what is the I? And moving, how am I moving? And hand, okay, we could maybe come up with the definition of hand, but what part is the hand that I'm moving?
Right.
So there are all sorts of implications that we don't even have the words, the know-how, the necessity to talk about those things. And so once we apply that to the world of science fiction, I think we get outside of our scope. And so we need something like, consciousness arising from kind of this ether, a lightning strike. Mm-hmm. And funny enough, when we talk about evolution, it rains on the rocks for millions of years, lightning strikes it, boom, non-life produces life. I'm just saying,
miraculous.
When we talk about Princess Kissing a Frog, it's a fairy tale turning into a prince, but if it happens over millions of years, then we call it science. So, there's something to say to that. And so I talked about in these movies, like Short Circuit, Star Trek Next Generation with Data, Skynet, or one of my favorites, War Games, which I think you can find a clip in an upcoming episode of Cave of the Cross Apologetics. These computers always have their consciousness arise out of their brain or their intelligence. So once you get so smart that suddenly consciousness evolves, and that is a very kind of evolutionary standpoint product thinking. And again, what we're talking about is we're applying human characteristics to machines, and to say things are intelligent would be mischaracterizing them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, data is really a perfect example of that, because even whenever he has emotions, it's a computer program that is simulating emotions. He's not actually feeling them on his own. He hasn't actually become human. He's still not really feeling anything. And they contradict themselves to begin with by saying he wants to be human, which is an emotion. So he's already feeling something.
To say I want is a desire. It's a product of the mind. Yeah. And I believe you have a picture of a book that I'm going to recommend for this. It's Nancy Pearcey's book, Love Thy Body. And you can find an interview of her on both of our channels. You had her first, and that's fine. And I honestly really enjoyed your interview with her, not just because we're friends, but because I enjoyed the fact that you put things into perspective as asking as women from a point of view of a woman in a space that's not necessarily rife with women. And so I would definitely suggest that episode.
Yeah, I also have to mention quickly, because I put your link in the descriptions. It's the only link in the descriptions, because your interview with her was far superior to the goofiness that we do on my program, because you guys are actually talking about apologetics, that's your thing. And so her book is fantastic for this. And if you're gonna watch an interview with Nancy Pearcey, I would actually recommend Cave of the Crosses rather than ours. But it was so exciting to see you guys talk. Well, anytime you guys interview anybody, I'm always excited because y'all have all this technical know-how, whereas I'm all over here you like pineapple on your pizza? So, anyways, proceed, brother. Sorry about that.
Thank you. So in her book, Love Thy Body, she talks about this, the current talk about this being-person divide. You see it, especially when we talk about the abortion debate. Is it wrong to kill the baby? Well, it's not wrong because that person, that being doesn't have personhood yet. Okay, so when is personhood infused into a vessel of a husk? I guess we are, and to talk about personhood and separation of being is very, very problematic for any scientist person, and I don't understand any scientist that wants to talk about that divide, because that's wholly reaching into the Christian worldview, right, of talking about personhood and consciousness. And I have much more respect for those who are 100% physicalists, those that believe that everything is made up in the physical world, that consciousness is just like how water is wet. You don't really have a personality. And for some people, I could probably agree that they don't have a personality. But that personhood doesn't really come from anything. So at some point in the scope of the birthing process, you're infused with this exo thing that inhabits your body and leaves you once you're dead. And we can talk about how that is similar to the Klingon idea.
Yes. I love how this keeps coming back to Star Trek. That is fantastic.
It all circles around Star Trek, you know.
Yes. As it should. As it really should. I should have gotten more pictures about Star Trek. So I didn't. Sorry.
So, I think Christians get this wrong as well.
Right.
I think they believe that we're this husk, that the body is nothing. And in fact, in the early days of kind of the monastic period, you have people that are not bathing, they're not taking care of themselves. They're viewing any external preening as a form of non-piety.
Right.
And so we kind of view ourselves as, we're this husk of a person. But in all honesty, like 1 Corinthians 16:19 through 20 says, do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not of your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your body. And so it's not the very fact that just because our bodies die and we go to glory, but ultimately we're recreated as bodies as well. Right. So to say that we should shirk off any idea of what the body is or the importance that the body has. There's a lot in Scripture that talks about forsaking the physical pleasures, sure, but not do away with all type of physicalness because it's evil. In fact, that comes from Gnostic teaching, which was one of the first heresies that the early church had to compete against. And so I think it's wrong for us to think about kind of like our bodies are just these husks where our soul inhabits, and where we're peering out through the lens of our eyes. And I think Nancy Pearcey does an excellent job in that when she talks about this divide, and we don't want to divide it. We might be dualistic in understanding that there are two parts that inhabit us, but to say that it's only the soul that matters and not the body. Yes, that you can prioritize some in the end. Do not be concerned about those that can kill the body, but be concerned about the one that can kill the soul. Right. We can talk about that, but we need to talk about it in scope of the two being in one. So for the Christian, we understand the need to balance the good and the bad technology. Yeah. Nothing is neutral in humans, in what humans do and the results of human action, which any type of AI is going to be a result of human action. It's not just, you're not going to sit an Apple IIe out in the middle of the desert, give it some power, and in 6,000 years, you're going to come back and it's going to be, farming. Right. And in fact, it should be the Christian that formulates these ideas. And it's, I would suggest that it's the Christian that should view kind of where it should end, and the scope of the experiment, or the creation of it, or the pausing of it. In fact, if you look at the early days of the Soviet Union, it was the Russians that attempted to kind of breed dogs with non-dogs, or try to get apes to procreate with women. It was built on this atheistic point of view that, right. You could kind of interchange these things, and you can say, oh, well, science has advanced this, and you have ideology that supplanted scientific evidence. But as we talked about when we went over Mitch Stokes' book, How to Be an Atheist, which is written from a Christian, it's not a neutral point of view to say, oh, scientific belief is founded upon high principles, and once your theory fails, you're just like, well, back to the drawing board. Well, that's not what happens. And the history of science is replete with that type of understanding. So if AI comes about, we need to understand that intelligence is a moniker that we should really take a look at. Realize we're so far from understanding our own intelligence. Right. That old joke of, is there any intelligent life out there? Well, I'm not sure if there's any intelligent life here. I think that still stands because we can't even ask the questions yet. Right. And also, I think Christianity needs to get over itself, and like how it gave away the arts to the atheists, to the left. I think it needs to take it back over and be there to to guide these processes in with an understanding, because it's only through the Christian worldview that we have the proper understanding to make these claims like, can technology advance too far? Do we need to take a step back? How will this affect other people? A whole slew of questions that the Christian worldview speaks against, and that science really doesn't cover, and nor should it. And it's only when you bring in your worldview stance that it comes about. So AI, artificial good, intelligence, maybe not so much, but I'm here with a phone that takes quantum computing, and I have literally a million different Bible versions and commentaries, and thanks to the guys with Bibles, they made me spend way more money on logos than I wanted to, but it was definitely worth it.
They have an excellent question for you actually right now. They want to know if you think intelligence equals imago Dei. I pronounced that wrong. Image of God.
In the image of God. So I think it incorporates some of it. I don't think it's the whole thing. So when I think about the imago Dei, what I view it as the royal decree going out from God. So we are put in his place to be that emissary, the person that, if you remember Gladiator, which is a good movie, unlike Princess Bride, you have the person kind of standing out in the foyer in the city square, and he's kind of talking to the words of Caesar. And so what he says is the voice of Caesar. That's how we are in the image of God. We see each other as fellow messengers, and just by our presence alone, which one of those aspects of it is intelligence,
right.
to this degree, because I think you can even point to intelligence in some fashion within certain animal species.
Yeah.
I think definitely one of it is looking at other people, being sympathetic, being able to reach outside of our own mind, our own scope, the ability to go rescue a child in the middle of the street that's not ours, that would ultimately hurt us, or sacrifice our own self for someone, random or stranger.
Right.
I think there's a lot of that in there. And so, yes, I definitely think it's a part of it, not the whole part, but I definitely would agree that that's part of the conversation.
Oh, that's a great answer. And I like that question too. That's a really great question. And he said, hashtag Team Gladiator. There's some sort of weird delay with the comments that we're getting. So I'm sorry that you guys are asking really cool questions and then there's a huge delay. But Cindy wants
They'll give me more time to think.
Huh? What'd you say?
They'll give me more time to think.
There you go.
So
Yeah,
I'll sound smarter than what I really am.
That's the great thing about going live, is that everybody can know that although we're podcasters, we have a great little edit button. If I sit up straight, by the way, it almost looks like I'm supporting Pineapple Pizza, so I'm kind of slouching. And I'm sorry that I'm slouching. That's not really very good posture, but I don't want anybody to think that I actually support Pineapple Pizza, because I don't. But moving on with this discussion, I'm really excited about the idea of about the conversation coming from a point where we say, by what standard are you making these decisions? By what standard are people making these claims? Because if we are, as believers, making illogical claims, then we need to readdress what we're saying and what we're doing, because we should be the ones that are logical. And if we're the ones that are logical, plus we have the standard of God's word, then this would be a really great place for Christians to actually shine in this area, to give meaning where these atheists or theists or agnostics are lacking meaning, where they are terrified. I mean, people are terrified of AI, honestly. Like, I almost hesitated to discuss this because of the fact that there are so many people out there that are terrified of this subject. But if we can actually explain the things that you just explained, where like the prospect or the idea of lightning striking a really cool robot with an adorable voice that loves pets, it's actually not ever going to happen. And we have science that can help that. But also, just as Christians, as believers, we have God's word that shows us that we're the only ones that are capable of this. And my husband got in a conversation with somebody a while back about this, where he was discussing whether or not there was aliens out there. And if there are aliens out there, can they be saved? And he was explaining that, God's word said he created man in his image. We're the only ones created like that. So there's not going to ever be tech, according to God's word, which is our standard. There's never going to be tech that's going to be made in the image of God that's going to be like us. So I think that's really helpful, and hopefully can really ease some of the tension. Was there ever a time in your life, brother, where you were nervous about this stuff because before I was a believer, when I was a false convert, this stuff really did used to freak me out. But now as a believer, I'm just like, bring it on.
I would say it was harder back in the day because I mean, you had movies like Terminator, Lawnmower Man, for anyone that remembers that. And yes, I've seen the second one. It's awesome. Scott Bakula, perfect. And so that was the extent. When you're talking about like brain hacking and Johnny Mnemonic and the Matrix. I mean, we barely had processing power to stream those movies when they came out,
right.
Let alone upload consciousness, let alone understand what consciousness is. So I think I have greater hesitation now just because understanding things like neural nets and kind of cloud-based computers working on quantum levels. I think there's concern about that, just as there was concern and should have been concern and was a part of the conversation in the Manhattan Project when the nuclear bomb was talked about. You had Christians of that era talking about it, and back then the military units and the scientists weren't even sure that exploding one would be possible, let alone not vaporize the atmosphere. I mean, that was a legitimate possibility in their mind of, we're going to take this bomb out, we're going to test it, you're going to see all the nifty people stand there and look at the big flash, and that's it. That's the end of humanity. So
let's do it anyways.
Yeah. And so that's why, when we talk about, this idea of science running the world, I'm sorry, but that's never going to happen because you're not going to have anyone that views science through a neutral point of view. It's not going to be a totally scientific point of view. And you see that when scientists who are good scientists try and go off into politics that they don't know about. And so there are repercussions to every scientific finding and understanding. Yeah. A book that I would recommend a little bit early that talks about this a little bit more is Alex Epstein's A Moral Case for Fossil Fuels. And in there, he's a philosopher, and I got so much out of this book. I definitely recommend it.
No relation there, right? Alex Epstein, no relation.
I don't think so.
Clear it up just right now, just in case.
No, this guy's a surfer dude. He's a philosopher.
Also, we had a question here. If you've heard the theory about aliens being demonic, because Cultish dealt with that. And since we mentioned that really like a little bit a second ago, I was gonna ask you that before we.
I think the Cultish guys did a really good job of talking about how we need to understand this within a Christian world point of view. The very fact that you have, and in fact, I just watched a debate with Hugh Ross and T-Jump on modern day debate, where Hugh Ross talks about there's a one-to-one correlation between those who experience some sort of abduction phenomenon and those that are kind of occult practices. So those who may have a Ouija board or do it, there's a one-to-one correlation, which statistically speaking is you don't come up with one-to-one correlation. So I would recommend him, even though obviously we disagree about the age of the Earth, probably. I think watching that debate points to what the guys in Cultish were talking about with an understanding of things like when people call out the name of Jesus Christ during abduction experiences and demonic-like things occur, like screaming and the encounter ending, people wanting to talk about these kind of remote viewing sessions with people. And, I being the nerd that I am, I've listened to a bunch of Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie and the rest of the group, Art Bell, back in the day. And so that's definitely a phenomenon that I've heard with discussions about encounters of greater than third kind. So, yeah,
that's really helpful. I think there's somebody else that the creator, and I'll look at his name while you're going back to talking about the fossil fuel thing, but the creator of Creation Magazine he wrote a book about all of this too that was really, really helpful. And Lee made a good point. He said one-on-one is causation. I think that's a really great way to put it. So you were telling us, though, about this book. I've got the picture here about the moral case for fossil fuels. And I interrupted you because his last name was Epstein, and I wanted to interrupt because that's kind of what I do. But you're used to that already by now. This book, when I saw it, I was really interested in this. I'm going to look this up. I'm going to read it. So continue what you're telling us about that, because that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it is on Audible too. So
Nice.
read by the author. So I always appreciate when the author reads it. But he makes a philosophical point that when we talk about nature, we talk about kind of like this idea of nature being perfect and pristine, and it's the evil conglomerate humans that come through. And if you have humanity there, it's the noble savages that respect the land and inherit it and cultivate it the most. That's not true at all. This world hates us, right? Mm-hmm. It wants to murder us. And so that's his point. It's about how do we partake in human flourishing while not killing humans? Because if at some point we, nuke the sky and don't allow sunlight, that's a big detriment to us, right? In fact, some of the best sci-fi writers that I listen to talked about how when you talk about this reformation of humanity from a post-apocalyptic world, it's just not possible because what's occurred is you have a good distribution of materials occurring on the surface, and it's only until you develop bigger tools to dig through these harder rock or more difficult places that you're able to extract other things that we're able to use for our technological purposes like gold and the like. And so this would never happen because we've dug it all up pretty much. When we talk about things like shale and fracking, that's brand new technology that we were talking about the end of oil. You can't produce any more oil. Back in the 80s, there was these scares of peak oil, and now there's not. In fact, when Russia or OPEC increases its supply, it actually shuts down production of shale producers here in the United States. And there's an attempt to put taxes on that, which is ridiculous because you want production to go in the easiest, best way possible, and you want to have reserves. So, here we're talking about end times, we're talking about technology, we're talking about politics. So I'm pretty sure we're not going to tick anybody off with this episode.
No, everybody's going to be really happy. Send all of your emails to Patrick.
So Moral Case for Fossil Fuels makes this great case about how we want fossil fuels and how much of a service it does. If you burn a fire to cook your food and to heat you from dying, that does way more nastiness in the atmosphere than burning coal. That coal is one of the biggest producers in the third world for heat and energy, and to take that away and say no more would be killing the third world. Right. And you kind of need them to allow to produce at that level, unless if you're going to create infrastructure on their point of view. So it's an amazing book. It's not just I don't believe there's global warming, and he talks about that as well. But it's just a good philosophical book. It's not a hard read. He makes just a lot of good and interesting points that I would greatly recommend. That.
Are you guys going to go through that?
Probably not. I don't believe he's a Christian. It's not from a Christian point of view. Okay. And so we're kind of more. I don't know what we're going to do next, honestly.
Really?
So.
Wow,
Yeah,
is that scary? Are you scared at that point? I hate whenever that happens to me.
No, we're about halfway through our current book, so I'm okay right now.
Yeah, plenty of time.
That's for future Patrick to worry about.
Poor future Patrick.
Yeah, in the future Patrick has the technology to determine which book he wants to read.
You'll be just fine. There's lots of topics. There's lots of stuff. Yeah, you guys are good. You're good for life.
There's a few books in my library, sure.
Just a few. I am so surprised. I don't know what's happening, but there's all these comments coming through on Facebook and YouTube, but I'm not seeing them on screen. But I am seeing Twitter on screen, which is weird because usually I don't see Twitter and I see all the others. But Guys, the Bible's asked question of the hour. # that post mill.
Well, see, I don't know. So, I mean, we could talk about end times if you want to. So for my post-mill brothers, you guys do a terrible job of representing the Dispy people. You're like, there's no point in saving the world and doing ecological recovery because God's just going to come through and rapture us all. So what does it matter what we do to the earth?
Right.
That's a terrible perspective of dispensationalists. And dispensationalists, not everything is the mark of the beast. Trust me, I deal with so many people who everything.
That's the point behind this whole conversation. What's that?
The cellophane containers on top of Hungry Man dinners is the mark of the beast because some reasons.
It shouldn't be there. Let that food rot.
Oh, man. So everyone's stupid. Stop it.
Right, just stop it. Yeah. That's why I like to call myself pan millennial now. It's going to pan out in the millennial. That's my stealing of Paul Washer. Also, because I don't understand it enough, but I had a great question from Kristen Everett, who is the one that on TikTok posted about both of our podcasts. She is a sweetie. And also,
very sweet.
Yeah, and her question was actually about that, so I'll be talking about that on the live stream on Friday. But
I'm not on that one, am I?
No, you're. Oh, now we're getting Facebook. Okay, now we're getting Facebook comments. I don't know what's happening with that. The live stream has never done this before with the weird question of things. It's Patrick's fault. Patrick, would you like to? Are you prepared to get a list of? Since we've now addressed this, right? So for all the listeners, before we talk about our favorite or our most exciting or least exciting technologies, we just explained why it's okay to be excited about these technologies. Like Patrick just handled that. So before you start writing emails to me about how all of the technology we're about to talk about is the devil, rewind, watch what Patrick has said, and then send me a message. So, are you ready? Are you prepared? Do you want to talk about the geeky stuff now?
I mean, I haven't started.
we started this conversation with Star Trek, and we're gonna end it with lots of weird technology. Okay, I want to know what is on your list, because whenever we started this conversation, it was actually about Neuralink, about Elon Musk's Neuralink, and I was fascinated by this a year ago whenever I first started learning about it. I got neurological issues. So I'm excited about that. But the main thing that I heard Christians say was all about how this is the end of the world and God wouldn't want us to do that and all of the stuff about how it's the mark of the beast. So I was excited to talk to another dork about that. And that's a compliment. So before you guys all think I'm being super rude, Patrick and I both understand that it's a good thing to be a dork. So what do you think?
It means whale penis.
What about your favorites? Do you start with your favorite? Do you give me your least favorite? What do you think?
No, I think most favorite because it mirrors what you were talking about. It's a enhancement of technology with humanity, and I view this as the same way that we talk about engineering design for cures. We take pig parts and put them in our bodies because they're useful, and we extend human life that way. We grow ears on the back of mice. I remember that in 8th grade. I was like, this mouse has an ear on the back of it. We're able to regrow body parts. So that's fine in some fashion. That's okay because that's organic. But when we talk about computers, then we're secret. And again, no one is secretly going to take the mark of the beast. It's going to be loud, proud. There's going to be flags. It's not. You're not gonna. Bill Gates isn't gonna come by in the middle of the night and knock you out and inject it into you, and suddenly you're going to hell.
Sure he is.
I deal with so many people through my ministries that talk about, does John MacArthur still believe that you can be saved from the mark because he came up with this one area where it may be okay to have taken it, but then recuse yourself? People. I mean, the internet is a great thing, but it's a terrible place because it has given everybody like me a voice. And maybe I shouldn't even have a voice. But that's what technology is going to do. It's going to give us the ability to improve and have a greater understanding about the world that we live in. And there's no big difference between me looking down at my phone and being able to look across 6 different Bible translations, see what the weather is outside without having to look out that nasty window and subject myself to evil sunlight, and be able to, look up the etymology of words.
Right.
There's nothing between that and projecting it on my iris. So
right.
I don't have a big scare there. And again, we talk about this idea of personhood and intelligence, or a body and personhood, and it's to say that they're going to cross streams or mold into each other, I don't think is even remotely there yet. And what you have today with things like pacemakers, that's a machine connected to a piece of meat that sends electrical signals, and it could short out. It could do harmful things. If you're diabetic, you could have an insulin pump. Mm-hmm. It could provide you with too much insulin, and you could die because of it. So I see no mark of the beast type evil that will result from this type of link. Now, again, I think there are ramifications that we should talk about for, whether or not you still like Newton's for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, or you take a different point of view. That is still a product of the world that we live in.
Right.
There's causes, there's effects. Every cause has an effect, going back to the first cause, which is God. And so we need to understand that we do have an effect that will last into the world. And so when we talk about things like, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, right, created an entire world war, kicked it off because of one assassination, and ultimately got us into 2 wars. So, we need to understand that it's humanity that's the one to be scared of here. I'm going to say it to be even more political, but it's the governments that you have to be scared of the most. Yeah. Those that not necessarily are the government because they're scary government, but it's a collection of people that believe that they're doing good.
Right.
And those are the scariest people. I would rather have a terrible dictator that knows that they're doing evil, because at least they don't have it in their mind that they're trying to do what's best for me.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the people that are always saying that they know what's best for everybody else. That is the scary part. And it's really the same argument that you would hear somebody make about gun ownership. The gun itself isn't actually doing anything. The gun itself is just a piece of metal. But it's the people that are using it that are bad. And we already have people using lots of different technologies today for really horrible, sinful things. But that doesn't mean that, like you mentioned, that there's not technology that's actually keeping people alive, and whether or not the pacemaker eventually shorts out and causes a lot of issues, people are probably going to die without it. So it's still helpful that people are not dying in the first place because of the technology. So we're made in the image of God, and life does matter, and it is very important that we keep that in mind. And I think that the conversation is not being had because there are so many people out there that just immediately go, mark of the beast, the mark of the beast. And so
there should be like a cage stage. There should be like a cage stage for them. Like, mark of the beast, end times. Yeah. I don't know.
And if I get called the Antichrist one more time, people, I'm going to give you one last chance. Okay, what's wrong with you people? Sorry.
Yeah, you're clearly the whore of Babylon.
I cannot believe that people legitimately get online and say things like that, and it's so difficult to have these kind of conversations, because I want to have an intelligent conversation about these technologies, and you can spend so much time studying and looking through all these things and create a video like this, and there's still going to be somebody that comes in the comments and says, yeah, but Mark of the Beast, oh, please don't do that.
Yeah. Well, and here's what I'll say. A lot of people aren't doers in the world. There are people that you read about, like Spurgeon and all the reformers of our faith, right? They went out, they did something. Whether he meant to or not, Martin Luther nailed pieces of paper to a church door to have a conversation about reforming, not overthrowing, but reforming, and it caused a movement. And he though went out and did something. He had a conversation where he lost a debate, and he went and searched more and found out that there were mistranslations in Jerome's Latin text talking about do penance rather than be penitent, and he moved the world. That's what the disciples did. They went out, they preached the good news, and the Bible tells us that they turned the world upside down. Yeah. And that's what people who go out into this world and make something, do something in some fashion, they're the ones that do it. And they're the ones that we should be talking to or be involved with or be those people ourselves. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, Christianity should have a hand in it. Yeah. If you're a mark of the beast person and everything's a mark of the beast and it causes you to stay inside and never have direct TV or cable or whatever you heathens do with cable technology now, I remember watching someone talk about how the old cartoon show of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had so many Illuminati signals in it. It's like, at this point, the rap community is just, it's doing it for the sake of doing it. So,
for sure. It makes me funny at this point. Like, just to have it all in there. Right.
And it's what we see too with conspiracy theories that turn out to be real. Like, I honestly think that there's a big problem with child pedophilia, especially in Hollywood. Yeah. Why isn't anyone doing about it? Because everybody wants to stay behind the safe keyboard and post videos about it. What can I do about it? I have no clue. I don't know. I'm just here telling you that you're not doing anything by posting a video, by hitting like, say what you want about those out there protesting. At least they're a half step measure above you, right? Doing something, and you might not agree with it, and it might be getting the wrong one, the wrong outcome. But with technology, it's going to advance, and so are you going to be there, as a Luddite kicking the machines until they break down, or are you going to be one who's out there saying, this technology can be misused. Let's talk about different ways to put in safeguards and the like. And you have that. The ability to radiate one's body with technology could be a terrible thing with nuclear war, or it could be a last-ditch effort to save yourself from cancer, right? So what is it? Go out there and be a doer of what you're talking about. And I think that's where kind of the dispensationalists get the wrong point of view too, is if everything's the end of the world, you're just waiting, fine. But no one says we have to accept the end of the world with outstretched arms here. We don't have to want to blow up the Dome of the Rock so that the Jews can build the temple back on it. We don't want the bloodshed, right? We're Christians. We love life, right? It's kind of almost a paradoxical move, but we're the only consistent worldview that the allowance for life, the love for life is viewed within the scope of all humanity.
Right.
So
and just FYI for anybody out there listening, after you hear him say, "Hey, go out and do something," instead of just complaining, nobody is going to listen to you if you just spent the last 3 or 4 months talking about how every single thing that happens is the mark of the beast. So stop saying things like that and actually say things that are helpful with solutions, and then maybe people will listen to the Christian community, because it's difficult for all of us out here trying to be logical to get anyone to listen to us, because so many believers are, or professing believers are online talking about how the mark of the beast is everything.
If 5G is causing COVID, create a suit.
No.
5G,
Somebody
or assume that you miscommunicated within your own mind the very fact that you burnt down those 5G towers, which I honestly, 5G is the DC of the AC/DC conversation, because it requires so many nodes within a certain location to even get it. It's going to be worthless technology in another 5 years. So stop burning down other people's stuff and start creating your own suits that protect you from the 5G. It's the same argument we heard with Wi-Fi. Yeah. Wi-Fi is going to radiate your body, and you're going to have electromagnetic spasms because of it. That's not the case. It hasn't been the case for a while now.
Okay, you keep talking, because I just realized that I forgot to plug in my computer. Keep talking, and I'm going to plug in my computer. But keep going, because you're doing great.
Oh, man. Okay. So here are the mark of the beast. No. Let me talk about warnings from the past. So here's a few things that we realized may have been an issue in the past come to fruition and see if we still have these technologies. The human body surely wasn't made to travel at incredible speeds of 30 miles an hour. That was said against trains. It was to stop the advent of trains, and our body just can't go 30 miles an hour. Some elderly people feared that touching it would give them electric shocks, while men worried that their wives would waste too much time gossiping. In Sweden, preachers said the phone was the instrument of the devil, and lines were stolen or sabotaged. Others feared that lines were conduits for evil spirits. That was said when telephones came about. Cassette tapes or VHS, they were killing the movie and music industry. Nope. Consumers just wanted a way to view their own content in the fashion that they wanted to at their time. And so that's what we see with streaming services today. Why should I have to wait at 4:00 now? And then I can watch it. And then I want commercials in it so I can run to go to the bathroom without missing anything. Or I can just hit pause on this digital thing that I can have in super HD and the way that the director wanted me to view it upside down, behind a fishbowl for whatever reason. I'm able to know those things now. TVs or CRT monitors. You're supposed to sit back away from the TV because it'll burn your eyes out. Well, that's because from the radiation that TVs caused, or it would cause pregnant women to miscarry. That's not what we see. And so we see in the Bible, where do we start out in Genesis? In Genesis 2, we start out in a garden, right? It was created by God, and we were told to what? Go forth, be fruitful, multiply. And once the fall came, we were told to go tame the land, work by the sweat of our brow. When we come to Revelation, where does it end? It ends in a city, not back in the garden. It ends in a type of garden, right? So G.K. Beale has some really good books on kind of the temple motif from creation to the temple tent to the first and second temples to the ultimate temple. Yeah. And so we find ourselves in the holy city with the source of light being God himself. And so we go to and fro in the city. So, why aren't we going back to the garden? Why aren't we becoming the noble savage, living off the land, stripping down to our hair so that it covers our parts so that other people can draw pictures without getting Christians in trouble. We see Jesus being a carpenter, right? He's taking stuff in nature and he's molding it for his purposes. Jesus was a carpenter. We see at the peak of the cross, from the cross onward, what happens? The word goes forth to the entire world. How is that possible? All roads lead to Rome, away from him. And there was all one language there. You had Koine Greek, which you had to know because if a soldier told you to carry his pack 1 mile, which he could legally do, you better be sure you understand it. Their technology has advanced to make the roads. It caused language to be able to be learned. And you had the Jews that knew their own Greek. They wrote the Septuagint. They had a way of taking what people said, copying it, distributing it. All those are technology that are within the scope of what we learn in the Bible. We learn from, the Tower of Babel. Why the Tower of Babel in and of itself isn't evil. It's what it represented. It's right. Man's sinful pride. And again, what's there? Well, it's man trying to do away with God. And so that's why I say that we need to be at the apex of the technological revolution. We need to stop giving up ground to the other ones because this isn't pious enough for us to devote ourselves to. Right. I'm sorry, but creating a business from nothing and doing it with biblical principles is exactly what we're called to do. Yeah. This whole notion, which I tend to sometimes want to put myself in, is just separate. Let's have our own community. Let's not let those evil outsiders in. Let's just have. And so then I go, yeah, but I really love some of my neighbors who aren't Christians. And I think that makes me a lot more sympathetic to non-Christians and humble. And there's not an echo chamber there. Yeah. It's all the things that us conservative Christians poo-poo about the left, right? No, oh, you're creating these echo chambers where you're never hearing another opinion. I kind of want to hear, how to defend the deity of Christ against someone who's claiming that he was never God,
right,
or that he's only the Father. I want to have those conversations.
Yeah.
And so God doesn't speak out against the technology. He throughout the scope of the Bible, he mentions in Second Corinthians. Psalm 20. Psalm 20 verse 7. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God, in Yahweh. He's not saying don't trust. He's not saying don't use chariots and horses. Some trust in. So where are we putting our trust? That's exactly what the Bible does through and through. It's not what goes into the body that defiles the man. It's what comes out.
Yeah.
So we need to understand that it's not technology that we need to be afraid of. We should be afraid of the people that utilize it in the wrong fashion, and we should be kind of afraid of those that do it without a Christian worldview to tell them when to stop.
Right. If we're not actually expressing any sort of worldview, then there is an echo chamber in the world of technology, and it's a lost person's echo chamber. Well, that should be scary to us. Of course, we're going to want to be concerned about that. But if our idea is to just check out or to ignore technology, then, like you're saying, what good are we actually going to be able to do about this? So it's helpful to have these conversations. We should also be having these conversations and listening and trying to understand the other side, which is why I appreciate what you guys do on your podcast, because you are actually dealing with both sides of this, which helps all of us that want to do the same thing. We want to make sure that we have an apologetic, that we have a defense of the faith, and without addressing any of this stuff, but just sticking our fingers in our ears and saying, oh, I don't want to talk about this, we're really doing a disjustice to the entire discussion. And that's whenever scary things happen. That's whenever there's not another worldview. And that we don't really want to hear our worldview, so we're ready to shut it down and not say anything. Nobody's going to fight for our world. Nobody is going to pull us kicking and screaming to talk to anybody about our worldview. So we have to be willing to do it and also educated to do it. Not everybody is going to be interested in this. Not everybody is going to be good at that, and that's okay. We're a body of Christ. There's different positions for each believer to be involved in. As long as you're not saying you guys shouldn't talk about technology because I don't like it, then I think we're good. You might not like it. That's okay. You don't have to talk about it. I don't like pineapple on pizza. That's because I'm holier than Patrick. Other than that, so we're good.
That's right. There you go. If you just I hate to do it, but to reference Wikipedia has a pretty good breakdown of Christians and technology, and it lists just a bunch of people who are Christians that came about with just gigantic leaps in technology, in science, in mathematics, and it's not just from 1500 to 1762. It's even today, like the creator of the MRI, he was a young Earth creationist. He didn't receive a Nobel Prize in 2003 because he was so outspoken as a young Earth creationist, and he helped to develop the MRI, which has saved thousands and millions of lives. It's now just being made smaller because of the advances of technology. So we can take it on the road and to pack them up and into vans and stuff and right. Use this technology out in the field where other people can't get to, or to the third world. And so it's the Christians that have advanced these technologies and like I said, the internet, those that helped create the vacuum tube. The first computer was created by a Christian. I just have a complete list of these in case we talked about it. And so I think we need to understand that we don't need to give it up. This isn't, okay, well, Christians can make Veggie Tales while everyone else makes, A Walk to Remember. No, Walk to Remember is a Christian film too. It's a poorly written one. Yeah, Brokeback Mountain. There we go. No Christians sing Brokeback Mountain. I think what Ang Lee did to the Incredible Hulk, though, is worse than two guys kissing. I honestly think so. So we need to be out front. We can do this. Jason Lyle is a perfect example. He uses his worldview and has an understanding that there are things like objective reality and that the human mind is capable of knowing that nature is real and what we get from our senses is pretty much reliable, that there is able to be known by scientific knowledge, cause and effect, or that nature is unified. All these things are propitiated on the very fact that God is the creator. He has revealed himself in scripture, and we go from there. And so there are people like Jason Lyle and others that use that basis of their Christian worldview to come with these amazing things. You have Newton and Pascal who Newton rediscovers calculus just because he needed it. And what does he do? He turns around and goes, well, yeah, I need to glorify God with this.
Right.
That's exactly what we should be doing with everything. It's this idea that, Christianity is kind of for Sundays, but not really. We should live it at home.
Right.
We should, if our coworkers ask us about our beliefs, we should tell them. But, let's just continue to do what we've been doing. It's not right. It's hiding behind keyboards, just talking about who the next Antichrist is, because their name adds up to numbers that are ridiculous. That's doing nothing. Congratulations on doing nothing. Continue to make sprockets because the world needs sprockets until you're pieced out as AI replaces you, which isn't a bad thing, by the way.
Do you know, speaking of Dr. Jason Lyle, any podcasters that have actually interviewed him or anything?
I mean, I just know the one. I'm sure there are others.
Just the one, though. Just the one.
Yeah, but I did hear on somebody else's podcast that I shouldn't be prideful, but I should also not be super humble enough to be a pity whore. So I'll just say, Cave to the Cross Apologetics had Dr. Jason Lyle on. Doc?
There you go. Yeah. Just in case you guys were wondering, they did get to talk to the doctor.
If you want.
It's pretty epic.
Yeah.
Actually, it's just a fantastic conversation. And anytime you guys get the chance to talk to science people or philosophical people, it's really exciting because they'll ask fantastic questions.
The same thing with about raising your children, and look at where we're at right now with respect to the virus and everything, where people are considering homeschooling.
Right.
Your children, we shouldn't live through our children as far as they need to do sports because I failed at sports. But we need to live through our children the product of the Christian worldview that we espouse. Do we believe that God is real and that we should train up the children in the way that they should go? Okay, then let's do that. I'm not saying that you have to homeschool, but I'm saying if you take your charge as a Christian correctly, how you train your children is an amazing thing. And it's one of the things that I was excited to talk to Lauren about too, when my 4-year-old brought up instantly transferring ourselves because she didn't like the car ride. And we had a great discussion about, we're not sure exactly how that would do. The amount of energy that would take would be enormous. We talked about movies like The Fly. I mean, I talked more about it with my wife. I didn't sit her down with like Cronenberg's The Fly and show her the puking on scene of, really good. Really good. So I didn't do that. But the very fact that we had this discussion about, will God allow that? It's exactly what we're doing here. And so, it's one of those things where we should be training our children to understand that God is sovereign, and what we think God wouldn't allow, we always have to check with Scripture and with the correct understanding, if we have the correct understanding of who God is.
Yeah, definitely. And that's exactly the conversations that if you can have them with your children, we should be able to have them with grown adults. Just saying.
I'd almost rather have them with children.
I know. You have such a brilliant way of looking at things. That is so cool, though, that your 4-year-old is thinking that way and that she was trying to find. Because right now, there's a certain brilliant human being trying to burrow under Los Angeles because he's tired of driving in the traffic. So, I mean, people are trying to find solutions to these issues. Brother,
Yeah.
I'm thinking we're gonna have to go for a round two of this because I've got to head out, but I don't even think we covered half of what we've got here. Did we?
I've got two more. So yeah.
Okay, let's do a round two. You guys, whether you like it or not, I'm gonna strap him down here in this video and make him agree to round two because you're live, and if you say no, everybody will see it. So you have to agree to it because your wife is listening in the comments, and so she's here to see her, and so if you agree to it, she can say, hey, you said you would do this. So
Thanks.
let's go for like a part two of this super fun conversation. Because this was great. Thank you both. Thank you, Cindy. You are so sweet. Oh my goodness. I love all of y'all's comments. I'm sorry the comments was weird and I had some audio issues like always. Eventually I get that figured out.
Well, you know what this means? Just watch it again. That's what you're gonna have to do.
There you go. That's right.
In fact, take the playlist that this is in and click play overnight and just you don't even have to watch it. Just play it.
Yeah, just
It'll
let
be fine.
it play. There you go. Almost as if we wanted the hours.
Maybe.
Just a little bit. Oh my goodness. I am so thankful for you, brother, for coming on, and let me know whenever you can do a part two, and we'll go ahead and we'll wrap this up this time, and we'll finish this conversation because there's a lot of questions that I have for you, and so if I continue to ask them, then I would be keeping you here for a lot longer, and I know your precious little ones are probably already home, so I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to go get started ironing because #housewife life, that's what I do. And hopefully we can do this again. Listeners, I hope that you enjoyed this. If we do a part two, which I don't know, did you say that you agreed to that already? Did I get you on camera saying that yet?
What? No, I will do it. You can put the gun away, okay? Yes, I will do a part two, Lauren. Yeah, that's fine. Send help.
It's almost time to get it.
Okay, thank you. My daughter just came and told me it was time to get started. Nobody send help, okay? Don't send help to him. He's fine. Just
Ask your questions in the comments.
ask your questions and send them to us. Let us have all the questions. And in the next round, we will totally address all those questions because this is a really cool conversation. And I really want to make sure that we're able to help anybody out there that is seriously concerned that this kind of technology is going to be dangerous. And yeah, so we're gonna come back to this again. And I will let all of you wonderful listeners know whenever Patrick finally is able to tell me what day and time is good. We're just going to continue threatening him in the other room, apparently, until he does. And so, yeah, that's it, brother. Thank you for joining me on this super random, awesome live event. Thank you all the listeners. And we'll talk to you later. Don't forget to check out Cave to the Cross Apologetics. It's in the description. There's links. Check it all out. The descriptions might be up there and they might be down there. And also don't eat pineapple pizza because it's heresy. It is. It's heresy. All right. Bye, guys. I have to click the streaming button.